Whether you're a beginner on Upwork and are applying for a job, or you're more experienced and you're responding to a job proposal sent to you by your client, ideally what you want to achieve through your message and the subsequent communication is a situation in which the client really desires your service. So your client really wants you and nobody else to assist them in their project. So in this video I'll share a number of tips that helped me over the years to secure a number of high-paying jobs on Upwork. And this advice will be divided into two sections, namely the actual message to your client, the first message, so the actual proposal, and then a video call that you really want to have with your client. And I'll explain why it's so important and what you want to achieve in that video call. The most important thing that I will teach you in this video, the most important advice and a message that underlies the whole video really, and all the other pieces of advice that I'll give you, is that if you really want to achieve that situation in which your client really desires your service, so they really want you on board, what you have to do first is to ensure that the power relationship between you and your client is right. So what I mean specifically is that you and your client have a certain relationship of power. As I said, it's based on the status, it's based on individual roles. So the only way to achieve that situation that I mentioned is to make sure that your client perceives you as the expert, the professional that may or may not decide to help them in their project, rather than somebody who's really desperate for a job. So just a freelancer who really wants to earn money, they really want that project, and no matter what, they will just agree to do what your client tells them to do. So think about the following example in order to understand exactly what I mean. If your computer breaks, if you don't really know much about computers and fixing computers, and something happens to your computer, you have plenty of important stuff there, and it simply won't switch on. One day you're just finding your computer not switching on at all, and you're absolutely panicking about the files and everything that you have on your computer. So what happens next? Of course, you're calling some repair center, or you're calling an IT specialist or a company that fixes computers. And if you think about it, what happens in that call, and if you think about it from the perspective of power that I mentioned, so how do you act when you call that place? Of course, you're panicked, you're asking them, sometimes almost begging them to help you. They put a specialist on the line, they're asking you what happened, and you're explaining that you have these important files, you're panicking, you don't know what's gonna happen, and you're just asking them if they could please help you. So you're hoping they will help you. You're absolutely desperate to get that help. You're not angry at them, you're not telling them what to do, you're not controlling them. You're asking them if you're hoping to hear a positive response to a question, whether they know what is wrong and whether they can help you. So this is the key part. They may or may not help you. You are very desperate for them to help you. You will not be, and you don't want to be mean to them, you don't want to be bossy, because you're afraid that if they are the expert and they know how to fix your computer, they may simply refuse to do so if you don't treat them in the right way. And now the same thing applies to Upwork. So you want to achieve the exact same situation on Upwork. You don't want to be perceived as somebody inferior, you know, as I said before, a freelancer who's desperate to do any kind of task assigned to them. You want your client to understand that they are in a desperate need, they are seeking help, and you are a person, the right person, the perfect person, in fact, who knows how to help them achieve their goal. And you may or may not agree to help them. In the remaining parts of this video, I will explain exactly how to achieve this power relationship. So now let's start with more specific advice. So let's start with the actual proposal. The first thing that I want you to understand is that you really have to spend some time on your proposal. So this is the same thing that I mentioned in my other video when I talked about having to spend time on completing the full Upwork profile. Otherwise, it simply doesn't make any sense to wait and see if the whole thing, the whole platform is worth it. If you don't have a complete profile, and the same way, if you don't spend enough time, if you don't really spend a lot of time on your own preparing your proposal, you won't really find out if the whole experience, if the whole thing is worth it. I've seen a lot of bad proposals in which the freelancer doesn't really say anything. They just literally say, "Hi, I can help you with your project," or "Hi, what do you need me to do?" It's not a good proposal because there is hardly any information in it. It is my opinion that you have the whole purpose of the proposal, and if you think about it, if you think about real job proposals, is to highlight your skills, to tell them everything you want them to know about you in order to make a decision whether they want your service or not. So you really don't want to leave any questions unanswered. Of course, naturally there will be some, ideally there will be some more communication between you and your client, and of course they will be asking some questions once you start to negotiate the whole thing, and you'll be asking them questions. But what I mean in particular, they shouldn't have any questions regarding whether you are the right fit for the job and why you are the right fit for the job. Because remember, they will have a lot of other proposals to review, and believe me, they won't waste their time messaging you back and forth to find out basic things about you, or as I said, whether you have qualifications, whether you are the right person, because they will have other proposals where this information is clear to them. Now, having said this, of course you will have to spend time on your proposal, but eventually, gradually, as you apply for more and more jobs on Upwork, of course you'll start to gather a number of messages, your own messages and your job proposal. So while I do not recommend using some kind of a generic message or some universal message to be sending to every single client, you definitely have to personalize your proposal. In practice, what happens is that you will have this general structure that you'll be sending. You'll be using that general structure. You will be tweaking some elements, so you will make it a little bit more personal and more applicable to a specific project. But overall, I have a number of these frameworks that I gathered over the years. But as I said, the first step is to really spend time on your proposal and plan it very well. So now let's get into the actual proposal and very specific advice for what to include in it. So the first thing to remember is that with your proposal, you can attach any files that you want or any links that you want. This is very important. For example, every time I apply for a job and respond to my clients, I attach my CV and my example publication. Again, as I said, I'm in a very particular niche, academic niche, and I just find that this is very important. Both of these documents communicate plenty about myself. So on Upwork, the client can of course check my reviews and the feedback I received, but my CV is mostly about things outside Upwork. Again, and there are many fields in which people won't really care that much about your experience outside of Upwork, but if there is anything that you can put, anything relevant on the CV, and perhaps you feel like it would take too long to describe or go through that experience in your message, then you should also consider attaching this document. So in my document, of course, there is some academic experience, where I worked, in which universities I worked, what I did, what I taught, as well as the list of my publications. So all of these are very academic things, and because the niche is academic, because the clients have specific requirements and expectations, I just know that this document will really help them and help me convince them that I am in fact an expert and a professional in this field. And the reason I attach my publication is again because firstly it's the evidence of my academic writing skills, is the evidence that I am really a person I'm saying I am, because obviously it's a published peer-reviewed journal article. So and another reason is because I contributed specifically to data analysis in that study. So this is also a good example of my analytic skills, and like I said, most of the jobs I do on Upwork are about data analysis, so it just makes sense to attach these documents. But remember that you can attach anything you want. You can attach a link to your YouTube channel, you can attach a link to your portfolio or your website, or websites that you have designed if you're a web developer, your Facebook page, or whatever it is that shows something important that you want to communicate. So what is the actual message? The first thing, it may sound like an obvious thing, but it's really not that obvious. I've seen plenty of proposals, and I've seen plenty of different approaches. The first thing that I like to do is to simply address the client by their name, if it's possible. So rather than jumping straight into hi, I'm this person, I can do this project for you, I like to say, you know, just to use their name, you know, hi John, or whatever, or dear John, or whatever way you choose to address them. Sometimes I don't know their name, and sometimes there are quite exotic names that I just simply, I'm not sure what to make of it and how to address these people. In that case, I will not use their name, but I will still say at least hi or good afternoon or whatever. Just as I said, in my opinion, this communicates straight away that you have some respect to them, for them, and also that you are a professional. And this is another advice for the whole message and any other messages that you'll be exchanging, to make this message sound professional, because I've seen messages that are, in my opinion, too informal. Again, this will to some extent depend on the niche, of course, but I still believe that regardless of the niche, it still should be maybe not too formal, but quite professional. It should be well structured. It should show the client that you treat this project seriously, and I think that's another reason. So apart from the actual content and, you know, what you communicate about yourself, the reason the message should not be too short is simply that it shows the client that you actually care. You spend some time even preparing that message. So of course there is a chance that you take the whole project seriously. So the next thing is the first line of your message. So here again we come back to the power balance, power relationship, and as you see, I like to start by saying that I reviewed the proposal, or I reviewed the job description, and I believe, and I came to conclusion essentially that I'm somebody who can help you with your project. So what does this have to do with power balance? If you think about the advice, the example that I gave you before about the computer and the IT specialist, by starting the message by saying that I reviewed your proposal or job description, and I decided that I may be the right person to help you, I already am sending that message that I'm not somebody who's desperate for your project. So I'm not saying I would like you to consider my application or whatever, so something that is more common and traditional job applications. I'm not saying that, so I'm not sending a message that I would really love to for you to consider me for this job. I'm saying that I reviewed the description and I made a decision essentially that I may be the right person to help you. This may sound like a small thing, but again, I believe it's absolutely crucial. It's already building that relationship between you and the client, the potential client, in which you are the expert. You make the decisions, starting with the decision whether you want to work with them. So the next part of my message always highlights everything that is important, that I want them to know about myself. Of course, it can be too long. This is why I also refer them to my CV. But basically, it's quite a stable and unchanging paragraph of my applications. Of course, I do change it sometimes, and I decide which information is more relevant to this client. But in general, it tends to be very similar. So here you have to think about what is it that you really want your client to know about you first. For me it was, as I explained in my other videos, again because of the background, because of the niche, I want them to know what universities I worked for, because this not only communicates that I have worked for a university in the first place, It also shows, the University of Edinburgh and the University of Oxford, so obviously they are quite well-known universities. So I want them to know that, and I believe it, helps already, helps me stand out among some of my competitors. But then, of course, I talk about data analysis, because this is most of the jobs I do on Upwork are about data analysis. So I'm telling them about my data analysis skills, the fact that I developed this best-selling data analysis course, which of course means that I probably know a thing about data analysis, and I tell them that I've taught at the university, and I've taught research methods, and again, research methods are extremely relevant to their project. The second paragraph is still a continuation of the first paragraph, but usually, if possible, if needed, I try to make this paragraph a little bit more relevant to this particular job. So generally this tends to be 1 or 2 sentences in which I explain how what I do and who I am is relevant specifically to this project. So basically showing them that this application is personalized and it's not just some kind of a generic message. And then I usually end with some brief summary and conclusion. And this is another crucial aspect, because here is the part where I suggest that we should have a video chat to clarify some details. So at the beginning, as you notice in my application, in my message, I say that I believe I'm the right person, but I first want to ask you a couple of questions or clarify some things. So again, power balance, remember, so I'm still considering whether I want to help you. And here again I state the same point, and I say so I summarize the whole application, the whole message, and I say that I still want to find out a little bit more about your project. So I suggest that we have this short video call. But most importantly, the purpose of the video call is to further nail the whole power relationship situation, and you will do that not only by projecting your knowledge, your skills, but also by offering them free value. And this is an extremely important advice, an extremely important thing to remember about. So what do I mean by offering free value? Of course, I don't want you to do any work for free for your client, but what I mean is to ideally teach them something new, or generally, if it's not possible, to project your knowledge, to project your background, your skills, to incorporate all of that into the conversation. And this is what I always try to do. Also, remember, I don't want you to be too stressed about it. I don't want you to start that video call and think about the structure and what you have to do and what you have to teach them. But rather just to know that if you're confident in doing what you're doing, this will be almost natural when you talk about this project, when you exchange some insights. So it's good to discuss the project with your clients. It's good to offer some kind of reflections and insights, because this already shows your background. When you do so, when you reflect on it, when you talk about it, you're already projecting your knowledge and your skills. So as I said, ideally they learn something from you. In my field, again, it comes quite naturally. Because of the research methods and different types of data analysis. So I usually try to discuss that project from that perspective, and occasionally I just chip in some information. So I may say that this grounded theory approach that I mentioned before, so basically an approach to data analysis, I may say that it's a good approach and suitable approach for this kind of studies, but let's say it's not good for that. For these studies, or I may say that there are different opinions. So some people have criticized this for this or that, but generally, the majority of researchers prefer it because it has the advantage of exploring under research topics, for example. So basically, it doesn't matter, of course, grounded theory or not. What I'm trying to communicate is that by talking to the client, when I talk to the client, I try to show that I know a lot about this topic. And like I said, if they learn something, that's even better. Another thing that I try to do is to offer some ideas for how to approach their project in particular. So I always come prepared. I obviously read the project description, And if it's possible, again, I try to generate some reflections and some ideas for how I would approach this. I'm teaching them, I'm showing them that I know this field, but also I'm already offering them some value. I'm already offering some ideas for how to improve their project. So what happens is that they of course generate this idea that I know I am an expert. I am an expert and I'm somebody who can in fact help them, because one, I already taught them something new. So again, as I said, this will not always happen, but if it does, it's perfect. So I already told them something they didn't know, they already learned from me. And two, I already offered some ideas for how to approach their project. So of course they are starting to dream about their project and how great it could be if I am involved. As I said, sometimes as a result of these conversations, the clients agreed to pay me twice as much. So initially so don't look, that's another advice, don't always try not to be put off by the estimate or the fixed price or the hourly rate that they put there, because simply first they try to of course explore the possibilities, and everybody prefers to pay less than more, but it doesn't mean that they don't have more funding. And secondly, sometimes they just don't know. They don't know. They're waiting for you to give them a quote, so they just put $100 in their proposal, but they are actually ready to pay 2 or 3 or 5,000. So don't be put off by this whatever numbers they include in the original proposal. This advice has really helped me with my projects. Hopefully it will help you as well. If you have any other advice, if you're doing something that has helped you, feel free to post it in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed this video, if you have learned something new, please like the video to help it get found on YouTube, and consider subscribing to this channel if you are not a subscriber yet.